Here.
Mr. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Dinello. Here. Mrs. Jenkins. Here. Mr. Augustine.
Here.
Mr. Fodor.
Present.
Mr. Hack.
Here. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Say aye. Yes. Against? Ayes carried. Invocation will be given by Katie Jenkins. Followed by the pledge of allegiance. Please stand.
You have set before us the responsibilities of the city. We ask your guidance and direction that we, the members of council, may do what is best for the people that live here. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Making a motion for the regular meeting minutes for the meeting at 8/19/19.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from 8/19/19.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried. Now we have a public comments from our visitors. We recognize visitors at this time. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. When called upon, please use the podium. Clearly state your name and address into the microphone and note your comments in 3 minutes. Any dialogue must be conducted through me as president of council, although your comments, questions can be addressed to the council, administration, and both.
Mike Faith, 531 South State Street. My question is basically, are city properties required to follow the property maintenance code? More so the grass length and height, or are the properties exempt? That's basically what I'd like to know.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. City has to follow the same codes as residents have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we have swearing in with the fire department.
Thank you for having us tonight. We have 2 promoted officers to swear in front of council tonight, Terrence and Martley and Michael Grubach. Terry's been promoted from lieutenant to captain, and Mike has been promoted from firefighter to lieutenant. Terry, you're up first.
You'd like to raise your right hand.
There we go.
I, Terrence N. Markey, being duly sworn,
I, Terrence M. Murphy, being duly sworn,
hereby accept the position
hereby accept the position
as captain in the Division of Fire,
as captain in the Division of Fire,
Department of Public Safety,
Department of Public Safety,
in the city of Painesville, Ohio,
in the city of Painesville, Ohio,
and further promise
and further promise
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and honestly
and honestly
perform the duties of captain
perform the duties of captain
required of me
required of me
by proper authority,
by proper authority,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
I, Michael Grubach,
I, Michael Grubach,
being duly sworn,
being duly sworn,
hereby accept the position
hereby accept the position
as lieutenant in the Division of Fire,
as lieutenant in the Division of Fire,
Department of Public Safety,
Department of Public Safety,
in the city of Painesville, Ohio,
in the city of Painesville, Ohio,
and further promise
and further promise
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and honestly
and honestly
perform the duties of lieutenant
perform the duties of lieutenant
required by me
required by me
of proper authority,
of proper authority.
so help me God.
So help me God.
swearing-in ceremony, it's tradition that we pin the new badges on the officers, so they have their family members that would like to come up and do that real quick before we go. Thank you for your time this evening.
Congratulations. Committee report are done. Legislation, if you wish to comment on legislation, you must request to do so at this time. Those making such a request will be called upon after the reading. Any dialogue must be conducted through me as president of council. All of your comments or questions can be addressed to the council and administration or both. Called upon, please use the podium. Remember, clearly state your name and address into the microphone and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ordinance number 1. Ordinance number 2. Ordinance number 3. Ordinance number 5. Ordinance number 6. Ordinance number 7. We'll move into ordinance number 1, second reading.
An ordinance amending section 167.07 relating to the classification and compensation plan and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this is based on a wage study that was done, and the administration would like to give the Economic Development Director a raise. This position would be raised from a grade 19 to a grade 21, and then she would be given a $2,000 raise in 2019 and a $2,000 raise in 2020 on top of any additional raises that are given. Currently, she makes $76,300.
This is stayed on for second reading. Ordinance number 2, second reading.
An ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and expenditures of the city of Painesville, state of Ohio, for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2019, and amending the original appropriations for the 2019 operating budget and declaring an emergency.
If the other piece of legislation is approved, we also have to do a budget increase. The $2,000 increase won't factor in benefits. Total increase will be $2,309, and it'll be spread out over the general fund, water, sewer, and electric funds.
Also leave this on second reading. Ordinance number 3, second reading.
An ordinance enacting Part 11 Planning and Zoning Code of the Painesville Code of 1998 relating to the Planning and Zoning Code.
Good evening. This is the second reading on the proposed planning and zoning ordinance language. As noted at the last county meeting, or council meeting, the new language allows the adoption of a new planning and zoning code with applying a UDC. Amendments to the zoning code require a public hearing at City Council. The public hearing has been scheduled for 8 o'clock on September 16th. Therefore, this item should be placed left on second reading, with the third reading being done in 2 weeks. Members of City Council should have received the red line version of the proposed language as requested at the last meeting. It was anticipated that our consultant, who has written the new language, would be able to attend the public hearing. However, due to scheduling conflicts, she will not be able to attend. So in order to address any questions or comments that members of City Council may have, it is suggested that they be sent to me so that they can be answered to the consultant prior to the next meeting. And then those questions can be addressed at the scheduled public hearing on September 16th.
Thank you. We'll keep this on second reading. Ordinance number 4, first reading.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 1341 signs of the Painesville Code of 1998 and declaring an emergency.
With the proposed language change of the UDC, Chapter 1341 requires modification. The sign code has been moved out of the Painesville Building Code, has been incorporated into the UDC. In 2017, the sign code was updated by our planning commission as part of their overall review of the city zoning code. So no changes are being suggested to the sign language. The language included within the proposed ordinance for chapter 1341 references compliance with the provisions of the UDC, permitting, maintenance, required inspections, signs on public property, and then penalties. The building official of the city of Painesville or the authorized representative is responsible for enforcement of those regulations. There are two proposed ordinances. This is the repealing the existing chapter, and the second ordinance, which will be read next, is enacts a revised chapter 1341, which has been summarized under the history section. It is suggested that both ordinances are left on the first reading to allow for public comment and be passed along with the UDC ordinance.
Any comments or questions? This ordinance number 4 will stay on first reading. Ordinance number 5, first reading.
An ordinance enacting chapter 1341 of the Painesville Code of 1998 relating to signs and declaring an emergency.
So Lynn just stated this is free.
So we'll keep that also on first reading. Ordinance number 6, first reading.
Do you want to do the presentation or the read first? You read it?
Presentation first.
Yeah. Any questions?
Want to do it? I'll read it and then we'll do the presentation.
Or 7.
No, we have one for 6 too. We want to have them do the presentation and the question.
You have to read the legislation.
I'll read the legislation, we'll do the presentation, then I'll read the next legislation. An ordinance enacting section 933.191 of the Painesville Code of 1998 relating to water system infrastructure and improvement fee and declaring an emergency.
Let you guys do the presentation.
Do you want to hand them the clicker?
Yeah, keep
They
it
look
going.
like a deer headlight.
So the water division, basically this is just a brief overview. We do produce a high quality safe drinking water. We have very little protections in the raw water, which leads to even less in the finished water. We produce enough water every year to fill 22 million bathtubs and water almost 13,500 golf courses. We've been in compliance with all state and federal drinking water standards. The city always gets high marks on our CCR report, or Consumer Confidence Report from the LMEPA. And on that report, you can see everything that's detected, because that's the laws. We have to report everything we detect in the water. The city of Painesville has not had rate increase on our water rates since 2011. And because of what's happened in Flint, Michigan, and in Toledo and Sebring, Ohio, the EPA has become much more stringent on lead and copper and on the harmful alkaloids that can be detected.
Okay, so the city contracted with Courtney and Associates to do a cost of service study for the water department. These are supposed to be done every 3 to 5 years. Honestly, I don't even know when the last time we did. So Monica did a great thing bringing them in to do the cost of service study. This study shows that the water department in 2020, if everything staying current, would have a fund balance of $19,209. In 2021, we would have a negative fund balance of almost $802,000. Now, this is not a deficit, this is a negative fund balance. In 2022, the water fund would have a deficit of almost $1.8 million. Now, this is illegal and against the Ohio Revised Code. This shows that the department is spending more than we're bringing in, and to offset these deficits, the general fund would have to transfer money into the water fund to offset this, and we just had in a budget discussion, there's no way the general fund could even come close to doing this when we're already operating at a deficit. So this is part from the cost of service study done by the consultant, and here it shows it's just showing in 2021, almost an $800,000 negative balance in 2021, and a $1.8 million negative fund balance in 2022, if the city does not. As a result of the cost of service study, the longer you keep waiting to raise water rates, the more the water rates have to get increased. And now this is just dealing with operating expenses. In 2019, they set 15% increase. In 2020, they're suggesting a 16% increase. In 2021, they're requesting a 19% increase. In 2022, they're suggesting a 22% increase. Now, these are not the rates that we're proposing, but I just want to show that the consultant wanted some extremely large rate increases. So the city brought the water rate increase information to the Finance Committee at the June 17, 2019 Finance Committee meeting. The Finance Committee wanted to see a split rate adjustment, meaning we are going to increase the water rates and we are also going to increase the infrastructure fee. We gave the Finance Committee two options. We said increase the water rate by 5% for 5 years and increase the water infrastructure fee by 50% just for 1 year. That was option one. Option two was increase the water rate by 5% for 5 years, just like option one. Increase the water infrastructure fee by 50% in year one, and then in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, increase the water infrastructure fee by 6.25%. We then gave a presentation to council at the August 18, 2019 council meeting, and council instructed the administration to come back with legislation for option number 2. This chart shows how the water rate increase change will affect a residential customer. Currently, the average customer, residential customer, is paying $26 a month for their water rates, $8 for the water infrastructure fee, for a total of $34. In year one of the increase, their water bill will go up to $27.30. The infrastructure fee would go up to $12 for a total of $39.30. We'll skip down to, and then every year we're showing increases, so the total increase for year 5 would be the water would be going up to $33.10. The infrastructure fee would go up to $14, and then the average monthly water bill would go to $47.10.
So two of the biggest issues that the plant is facing right now in treatment will be the harmful algal blooms and the lead and copper roof. Harmful algal blooms, if we have a detect, we will have to turn on the carbon feed system as soon as we have a detect, anything over 0.3. That being said, you then start repeated sampling, and if we get to the point where we see a growth in the raw water, which is the Lake Erie water, we could be forced to feed up to 40 parts per million, which could come out to $2,100 for 1,000 pounds, which requires a super stack. That's where the new carbon feed room comes in. A super stack weighs it can weigh up to 1,000 pounds, even more. You need a front end loader to load that into the room, to bring it into the room for the hoist to load it into the feeder. And also, because of the way the plant is set up right now, if we were to have a harmful algal bloom to the point where we couldn't backwash our filters, we would be unable to treat water because our backwash water goes back into our raw well. So that is why there's a backwash lagoon that's needed, so that the water that we use for backwashing can go into the lagoon and not go back and recycle into the plant. The lead and copper rule, currently we do triannual sampling. With every service connection, like when we replace a water main, it's $1,000. And we have to hand out pitchers for filtering water so that the customer does not have any kind of lead contaminants in there. They run about $30 a pitcher. And we are also required by the Highway EPA to continually update our maps for the lead and copper service lines.
What is the backwash lagoon?
We don't have that. We need.
I don't know how big would it be.
Well, each filter wash is approximately 60,000 gallons of water, so it would have to hold that, depending on the amount of water we use. So in the summer, we tend to wash filters more often because we use more water, we make more water. It would need to at least be able to hold in a day 200,000 minimum. Okay. I'm going to get this one down. Okay, so the other new thing that the EPA is throwing at us is our asset management plan. So we were able to purchase a valve exercising machine. It cost $100,000, and that came part of the infrastructure fee that we have for the intake. With that, we're able to locate valves and turn valves and map them for GIS. We have over 2,000 valves in the water distribution system, so to locate them just manually and then map them would take years. But currently, we're doing it all constantly as we go through the years since we've had this. The GIS system also is constantly having to be updated with not only the information from the distribution system, but also the water plants as well. The personnel. So the water department requires a class 4 license. I'm currently working on mine, and has not been successful yet. There are less than 100 active operators in the state of Ohio with class 4s. Our plant is a class 4 plant. It's based on the fact that it's surface water and the size of the plant. How much we can, what we're rated. So we're rated at 7.5 million gallons, therefore it requires a class 4.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, where we're at right now with personnel at the water plant, we've been working on a water supervisor to be just right below Deneen. That position hasn't been filled in 6 months, and we've advertised extensively in the last 6 months. Just shows you where we're at in the state of Ohio with water and sewer personnel with class 3 and class 4 licenses. So it's getting to be pretty good. So the last meeting, we had some council members that were asking about, where are you going to spend this $1 million? So we've done a lot of work. It was in last year's 5-year capital that you all approved. We're working on it as we speak for the next 5 years. So some of these are estimates, and some of these projects could obviously be changed because a lot of them are tied into regulations, upcoming regulations are tied into streets. So this is our best estimate where we're at right now, but we want to give you guys an idea of where we're standing. So those projects, I mentioned a few of them in the last meeting. The Carton Feed building, which Deneen just talked about, we're in the process on the number 6 filter repair and rehab on that. Water plant electrical upgrades, a lot of money involved with that. A lot of wires running around a little loosely throughout the water plant. I think some of you have seen that when we were out there on the finance committee tour. The water lines that are already in place for next year, we have OPWC funding for Skinner Avenue water line and Button water line, and those also tie into road improvements. In 2021, now you can see where a lot of the water improvements are going to come into plan. So you got chlorine feed room upgrade, filter room floor upgrade, the Super Sax loader. We're going to try and get by a year without even having that and use what we have at the wastewater plant. And we'll go down there and run down there and let them use ours for a year because we just don't have the funds next year. That's how everything keeps getting pushed back when you don't have the funding. Computer upgrades, vehicles, fluorine room crane, Route 86 booster station, transfer switch, the Chestnut booster station is a full upgrade, cryo water tank painting. Just for example, today we were out, we have a nice drone that we bought last year, so we're doing our own inspections on our water tanks. So we were out at Auburn, Route 84, and Cryo Road, and they're all starting to rust pretty badly. And AWWA wants you to have those painted inside out every 15 years, and some are 30 years or more right now. Water lines, we're just looking at a design for Lattimore Mill right now. 2022, cryo building, pump upgrade, water plant windows and doors. You've seen a lot of that when you're out there on the tour. Water plant heating. Some of our rooms are so cold in the winter, you've got to pile on the clothes just to go through the plant. Water lines, we're going to build back up again, start doing some more water lines. We did a study on Lattimore Mill to do that in 2022. Chestnut Street valving, East Washington valving, and West Eagle design for 2023. So, like I said, we did a lot of work last week on some of these projects. Laboratory upgrades, water tank painting, a minimum right around $500,000. That's just one tank. Just so you know, I went out and got 3 estimates just to prepare for this type of funding, and we're looking at $500,000. Basically, you've seen them. They're going to be hanging from the side on ropes doing these paint stripping and painting. And it's inside and out, and each one of them's going to be $250,000 to $500,000 each. And then the one West Eagle water line and paving on that one also. And then the last year, what we're planning for, the sludge lagoon, we'd like to have enough money to do that at that time. Allen storage tank, overhead door replacements, and the water lines would be East Walnut and Magnolia.
Any questions from the council?
Yes, two. So how long before we're in trouble without a class 4 license there? I mean, you know, obviously they let you.
We just asked for a 6-month extension,
Okay.
and it hasn't been approved yet. Tentatively it was approved across, you got the approval letter, that's even better, it has been approved. So we submitted that last week and got ahead of the game on that.
Okay.
So right now we got 6 more months. And just, you know, she is really working hard on this. There's no question about it. She's given her life effort to this endeavor. And she's in her 2nd round of review. Just finished that up. We're going down next month on the 18th together to go to the committee and just find out exactly what they want. And we'll get through this. We're going to get through this, so I have complete faith in that.
Then I don't know if this is appropriate to ask here, but is there an update on the intake? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, the uptake on the intake real quick, the pipe is done.
Okay.
And right now, if you've been out there and looked down the lake, they're digging down to remove the tunnel boring machine. So they'll be working on the crib. And right now, they're filling the pipe up as we speak to do pressure testing.
So, guesstimate, when is it done? When will we-
Good guess. No, we're right around December, January.
Okay.
Because if you were out there today, we had 3-foot waves out there today. They don't go out on days like that.
They can't work in it.
They can't work. So those are delays. And Mother Nature is going to reap her wrath.
But you're pleased with the progress?
I am.
You too? You're gonna sleep better once that happens, right?
Winter's coming.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping okay now.
Any other questions?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Mike Fade, I think the intake will be done when we pay it off. It won't be by December. I want to miss out a good presentation, thank you. Is the water department a profit-generating entity?
No,
No.
we are not for profit.
Okay. What year was the water improvement fee supposed to expire? Initially.
It's a
2039 is when it expires.
When was it initially supposed to expire before it was extended?
20, what would be, maybe early 2030 or something like that.
2022 or something?
No.
Oh, no, it was past that.
Yeah.
It was 2028 when you said it.
Yeah, it was like late 20s or early 30s.
We can get that information.
Yeah, I know. I think it's out somewhere. And I guess the last, on the EPA mandates that we can't afford, the city manager report says the city cannot afford the upgrades. Is that a true statement, or is that up for debate?
That is definitely not up for debate, it is a true statement.
We don't have any money.
If we did those improvements they showed you, which is the carbon building for $500,000, the lagoon for $1 million, the number 6 filter for, I don't know what that number was.
It's right around 200,000.
200,000, we don't have that money.
And most of that is for the harmful algal blooms, which is the reason we
The
pay for the
carbon
intake.
building is 100% for the HABs. The filter number 6 is because it broke down and we couldn't afford to fix it, and now the EPA says you will fix it.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if we, and I don't know, you may not be able to give me this number tonight, but if we were to shut our plant down completely and just say to somebody that in a surrounding business that does water, give us your water, we can't be in the water business anymore. Comparatively to what we're currently charging our residents, what would that look like?
So our residents would definitely pay more. That chart was in the first presentation we did, where Painesville is actually the lowest water rate in the area. So to go to, I mean, if you did like Fairport Harbor, they're
There's $600 a year more than us. right now.
$600 a year more.
And that's in our current rate structure.
That's, yes.
Right.
And it would still be slightly more in the, if we were.
Even with option 2 that
Which is
council
a little
went
more
with,
aggressive.
it would still be, we're still towards the very lower.
Well, position 8. We took
So-
option 1, it was position 4, and we took option 8, it was position 7. Out of all 20 of those.
So then, like logistically, would there be a liability for us to just shut the plant down? Like as far as financial liability would be
Oh my gosh.
responsible for?
It's, so,
We would be in,
I mean, it's not possible.
yeah,
And that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
have out there is the fact that, you know, this is something we kind of have to keep doing, whether we want to or not. We'll never make money from it, but we can only hope to break even.
right.
What are the reliefs that are offered, any reliefs, I guess, offered when the EPA has a demand? What are the resources available to communities to meet those demands when their own finances cannot support?
They are all unfunded mandates, and what we have to do is sit down with them, walk them through what kind of money we have, and beg them for extensions. That's our only relief, is begging for extensions.
The EPA did give us an interest-free loan for the water intake, and that is
Right.
saving us $3 to $5 million.
Yeah. So then either way, if we were to sit down with them at the end of the day, their recommendation would likely be to go with whatever the rate structure.
So their
recommendation was
recommendation
to
would
review.
be, go with what John Courtney and Associates told
That-
us, which
that massive,
was
like,
a
up to
60%
20%
this
per
year,
year.
a 19% the
Yeah.
year after,
Okay.
22% the year after.
Thank you. Ordinance number 7, first reading.
Well, we didn't really, did we go over 6, or is that, that's,
Oh.
oh, yeah, you could go through
Yeah,
rates
it's
here.
like, do you
I
want
just
me to talk?
wanted to talk to you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
so
yeah.
much tonight. Yeah, right.
An ordinance amending section 933.19 of the Code of Ordinances relating to water rates and declaring an emergency.
We have 2 pieces of legislation for the water. The first one is to increase the water infrastructure fee, and the second piece of legislation is to increase the water rates.
So this is ordinance number 7.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, we'll leave ordinance number 1 on first reading, and we're on ordinance number 7.
Ray Sternach, 346 Birchwood, Painesville. Let me preface my comments by stating that since it's been several years since the city's had a water rate increase, one indeed may be needed. 2011 is a long time to go before rate increases. I hope we do a better job going forward like we do with the electric. But at the last council meeting, Mr. Genetti presented to council two rating options to consider. As I stated in my recent email, that copied members of council, I wonder whether the options, including the middle of the road option by Ms. Denalo, are either too low or too high of a rate increase. But I'm glad to see that actually there was an actual rate study that was done. That wasn't clear in the last presentation. So that's positive. But I still wonder whether or not we need to, based on that study, whether or not the rates we're going to go with, either option 1, 2, or 3, some middle of the road, are sufficient. You know, at some point in time, are we going to come back and ask for a rate now, and then the next year ask the residents to go for another rate increase again? I mean, you know what the rate study says you need. We should be, you know, in essence, striving toward that. But, you know, I think you got to explain to the residents, okay, we're going with this option, but the rate option says higher. So, you know, that's a communication issue that you're going to come back a year, another 2 years that, hey, they're going up again. So I got a problem with that. Maybe give us the bad news all at once. And that's it. Thank you.
So we do plan to do cost of service, revenue requirements every 5, cost of service every 3, to make sure that we are staying on top of it like we do with
Very good. 2011, a long time.
yeah, it's too long.
If we do go forward, or if council does decide to go forward with this 5% water rate increase, the water fund will be balanced just about, or will be balanced in 2020.
Maybe we'll keep ordinance number 7 on first reading.
I have a question. So by balancing the water fund, the 3,000 is strictly the general fund imbalance, correct?
The
General fund budget.
General fund is 365.
That's, which
Yes.
has nothing to do with the water fund
Correct,
being balanced. Okay. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Unfinished business, we have none. New business, oversized vehicle parking.
Andy?
Huh?
Yeah,
Really?
no, I think I'll take this one. So I can say, since I've been here for almost 3 years now, the biggest complaint I get is on parking. And this is, yeah, it's citywide. The two main areas are commercial vehicle parking in residential areas and on-street parking. So we threw together a presentation that talks about those key areas. It's coming. I just have to find the drive. No, it's right. I've never had to find this thing. It was too big to email. made the ordinance easier to enforce. So this is what the ordinance number 1711 looked like. It went to the Housing Task Force, it went to Planning Commission, and then it came to council for approval. Next. In 2012, the 1711 was updated again. Council chose to remove the reference to commercial vehicles, add a specific vehicle types, removed specific vehicle types, removed the reference to dimensions, and reduced the penalty to a minor misdemeanor. So, no, that's perfect. So in summary, what 312, it does not allow the storage of school buses, semi-trailers, full trailers, triaxle vehicle, tandem vehicles, and commercial tractors. But it does allow dump vehicle, tow trucks, flatbeds, and motor vehicles with no limitation on vehicles based on width, height, or length. There is still a zoning ordinance that does not allow someone to run a commercial business from their home, but it is hard to prove whether someone is just parking a work truck or if they are running a business. So parking enforcement. Since the edits of the ordinance, the police department has done 19 citations, and the community development department has done several citations, but we broke them out. The oversized vehicle, 2 and 12, 6 and 14, 2 and 16, 13 and 17, 8 and 18, and none so far this year. So the current issue, the main issue that's identified by neighbors is dump vehicles and trailers. Again, it's difficult to prove whether a resident is running a business out of their home or if they're just parking a truck. These parking issues happen throughout the community, but are definitely seen on Townville Court, Oak Street, West Jackson Street, East Erie Street, Colonial Drive, Reed Avenue, Morris Avenue, State Street, and North St. Clair. And here's just some more examples of calls we get. So on-street parking. So people then ask, why do we let parking on specific streets? So we sat down with it's actually a team effort in Painesville. If I get a complaint, I send the fire chief, I send the city engineer, and I send the public works director, and together they talk it through. But the chief recommends that we stay with our current guidelines, which is if the street is less than 20 feet wide, there's absolutely no parking on the street. If it's between 20 and 30, there's parking on one side, obviously the non-hydrant side. And if there's hydrants on both sides, then it's up to the fire chief and engineer to decide which side is allowable. If the street is greater than 30 feet, there is parking allowed on both sides. Obviously, there's caveats to that as far as intersections and things like that. There is absolutely no parking permitted on Menor Avenue, Chestnut Street, Liberty Street, Jackson Street, Richmond Street, Walnut Street, Elizabeth Boulevard, Renaissance Parkway, Newell Street, Shamrock Boulevard, Brookstone Boulevard, West Prospect Street, Chester Street, Bird Avenue, and all cul-de-sacs. So the guidelines to this is actually in the Unified Development Code, which you guys looked at earlier tonight. I just put the local street design on there. The new code has that local streets are 30 feet wide, unless the city engineer may take adjustments based on traffic analysis and criteria for modifications set forth in this section. The other concern has always been setbacks and driveways. So if we're not going to let them park on the street, then let's fix the driveway situation. So currently, the pre-existing conditions of the driveways were designed for a one-car family. Obviously, back several decades ago, most people only had one vehicle, and those vehicles were not necessarily the size of the vehicles we have today. So with people having more vehicles and larger vehicles, they don't always fit in the pre-existing conditions. So under the Unified Development Code, there is a setback modification where single-family residents can locate turnouts and additional parking in the front setbacks, provided not more than 40% of the setback shall be paved. No new driveway shall be located closer than 3 feet to an interior side lot line or closer to 20 feet from the right-of-way line of the nearest street. And obviously all drainage should be maintained, so the more concrete you put, or asphalt you put on your property, the more you have to be aware of stormwater drainage. So that covers oversized, that covers, commercial vehicles, that covers setbacks, road widths, and parking in residential areas.
I have a question. So some of the vehicles that you posted pictures of, yeah, thank you. All right, right there. So, you know, like, what is this considered, the two-wheel trailer, that that's a problem?
That it's
It's
a problem.
tandem? Yeah, is this a problem? Is this trailer an issue? Because it's not a triaxle.
It is, as long as it's parked on a hard surface behind the front setback.
Okay, so it's allowable. That's why I was like, let's go back, because I just want to make sure.
Yeah, all of these pictures are allowable,
Okay,
but
and then,
because of the changes to the ordinance, they're all allowable.
okay, and then if we go back one more to the dump trucks, these are allowed, correct me if I'm wrong, these are allowed to be parked on private residential property, just not in the street, or are they allowed in the street now?
There's no enforcement to allow us to kick them off the street.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Say that again, Monica. I mean, if they park it on the street, it's okay to park it on the street? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
But it depends on the width of the street.
They have to be parked on a hard surface. Typically, they can be parked in the driveway. If they are commercial vehicles on the street, and that comes more into the police, as far as parking is concerned, they can park on the sidewalk, or on the street, as long as they're doing, the delivery types of things or maintenance work and things of that nature.
But overnight, they're not allowed to park on the street.
Yeah, semi-trucks and
That's what I
tractor
thought.
trailers.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
parked in the
confirm.
city.
Okay.
But what about the pickup truck with the huge trailer that's got all the lawnmowers and everything on the back? Can that sit on the street overnight?
There's no parking ordinance that we
No.
can make them move or site.
Right. So they can be parked there overnight?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You indicated that the thing you get the most complaints about is the parking or this type of stuff. Are the complaints that they
Want
just,
to park, or
they don't
being
like
parked?
the being there, that they're, like, what are people complaining about?
So I would say the two largest complaints are, I live in a residential area, I don't want commercial vehicles parked in my residential area. And the other one is, these people have so many cars, they're parked all along the street. Those are the two biggest complaints.
And then if there is an association, such like as Heisman Park, they can have I guess I call it rule against that in their neighborhood. Like, they can go above and beyond what the city.
You mean at the homeowners association?
Yes, thank you. So if the homeowners association of Heisman Park said,
There are streets, they're not the homeowner streets. They build them and then they dedicate them to the city, so those streets have to follow the same laws as the city.
But I mean, could they create a homeowners association rule that you can't park commercial vehicles on your personal property?
Yes.
On your
Yes.
personal
Yes.
property?
Yes, on your
Yes.
personal property.
Yes.
Okay, so, because the first complaint you said was, they have commercial, I live in a residential area, and they have commercial vehicles parked in a residential area.
Right.
Is that, I mean, I live in a residential area and I don't like Hondas. I mean, is that, to me, that sounds similar to, the use of my driveway is the use of my driveway, and what I choose to park there is my choice, as long as I'm legally parking in my driveway. Is that not standard across the board for cities? Or do some cities say you can't park certain vehicles in their
Correct.
driveway?
Most cities do not allow commercial vehicles to be parked in a residential driveway.
So what
And
is
that's
somebody?
what our original ordinance
Said.
in 2011, that's what that one said, it was mirrored after other communities. In 2012, by changing the language, we now allow commercial vehicles to be parked in a residential area.
Okay. And And what if we were to, like, let's say tonight council says, I feel we should review this ordinance and take a look at it from this perspective of present day. What would we be telling our residents to do with those commercial, like, they can't park them on the street, and now we're telling them we can't park them on their private property. What are the alternatives in other communities? What are the alternatives?
They leave it at work or their commercial place of business.
Does, well, along that same line, does council feel that this is an ordinance that we should be reviewing based on the complaints that Monica receives?
Why was it changed in 11 or 12 to allow the commercial vehicles parking driveways?
It was a recommendation of council to change it.
I believe at the time, I believe Jim and I were on the housing task force, possibly, I may be making it up. And I remember there being discussion about the enforceability of dimensions. There was a feedback at the time from the police chief that, you know, the officers aren't gonna be getting out rulers to verify that there's, you know, this is a 20-foot versus an 18-foot trailer. So I know that was part of the push to get rid of the measurements. And I think we were trying to get a language that was easily identifiable and easily enforceable, because how do you define some of those categories? If we went too far and oversimplified it, and now we're looking at it later on, and I think that's the discussion that we had at the time, if we're looking at it later on and going, this is not the route that we wanted to go with this legislation, we should review it. But I do remember very clearly that at the very least, this size of the vehicles was something that we were told police officers aren't walking around and take measures.
But there, I mean, some of the trucks have commercial plates on them.
Yeah.
So those are pretty easy to discern. It's commercial.
Well, but there's some F-150s that have commercial plates. So,
If I remember correctly, too, some of the argument was that in some of our older, more established neighborhoods, the, over time, the use of that property has changed, and/or that there is some mixed development in there. So like if you go down north St. Clair, you'll see there's a few places there, and there were some nurseries that people had. There were some areas where people had large lots of land that they could utilize for more than just their residential facility. So I guess I'm not saying that really well, but what I'm saying is that we don't have cookie cutter housing developments in all of the community. And I think it was felt that, and that's why I brought up the issue about homeowners associations. It was that some of these newer communities have these associations that then can establish those kind of standards so that they didn't have to necessarily be in some of the, you know, allowed in some of the new developments. But the older developments suffer a little in this regard, because Jerry Pop is a good example, who lives on the corner. He grew up there, and that was a farm at one time before the freeway went in. So, you know, he was somebody that had a dump truck in his yard. And so we were getting pushed too from the people with those kind of pieces of equipment that they should be allowed to have them. So the push at that time was for it to be allowable. Right, and now what we're hearing from Monica, I believe, is that we're getting a different push.
So does anybody else feel we need to review the legislation, maybe have a housing task force?
What do you think, Nick? I know I've received multiple calls from one specific location back and forth, but it was a congestion issue. I'm not quite sure if, you know, if the congestion issue was because the driveway was full of commercial vehicles or not.
I guess the question I go back to mine, when you think about the time you spend on this, is this something that if I were re-looking at it and making some changes in it, would make your job easier, make it more concrete? Or does the looseness of the, you know, the looseness of the way it's written in terms of letting someone park their trailer and their truck and so on and so forth on there, which causes concern for some of the residents, but yet there's nothing that we can do about it? Do you feel that taking the time to rethink this would improve your job in terms of less problems, less complaints, or less dealing?
Well, that's a double-edged sword. I can't really answer that because obviously any change you make is going to upset a large group of people. But I can say most communities protect residential areas from commercial vehicles because there's zoning and there's, you know, you purposefully leave residential as more of a, you know, homey feel. You purposefully discontinue commercial activity in the residential area. So, I mean, it appeared to me that the 2011 ordinance would have been pretty easy to implement. It would have been pretty easy to enforce. But it would also tick off anyone who had a commercial vehicle because we would be citing them and telling them to move their vehicles. So I can't really give you a clear answer. I can just tell you that parking is one thing that is consistently complained about in the city of Painesville.
So to go back to Katie's statement, you know, your driveway is your driveway. So if you're going to put your commercial vehicles in your driveway, but then park your personal vehicles on the road, it's really kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, anyway, looking at it. So I guess from my perspective, I wouldn't mind looking at it again, just taking a look at it and just in terms of helping or making some of these things go away, or really actually looking at it and saying, you know what, we've gotten this many complaints and this is where they're at, and maybe we live with it, or maybe we don't.
One question I have is, should street parking or should vehicle parking, should street parking be a place, be used for people for permanent parking of any vehicle? So in other words, I have 5 cars and I have a 2-car driveway. Should 3 of my cars be on the street? Is that the purpose of street parking? Or is the purpose of street parking, I'm having a party, I've got extra company? So, I mean, I guess that's my question, is how far do you want to take it? Because unless you have rules about like no overnight parking or anything like that, you know, somebody with a family of 5 children and all 5 of them are driving. I mean, I've been lucky, I have a very big driveway, but I'm rare in this city to have that kind of driveway. I had 4 kids, we all had cars at one time, we were parked almost side by side on my driveway, that's how big my driveway is. But most people don't have that. And so I guess from my opinion is that if the vehicle is causing some kind of disturbance or nuisance, if it's loud and running, making noise, I thought from just some of the stuff that I read in the new code developed, PUD stuff that we have, yes, say again? UDC. That some of that stuff is covered in there. You know, like I read a whole section in there last night about, you know, commercial vehicles, and they're not intended to be loud, and you can't have equipment, and there's all kinds of rules that are covered in there. So I think when we looked at this before, the other piece that came out was that other rules cover some of those kind of nuisance things that come up. So for me, to talk about it again, I guess I'd like to have Val, if everybody agrees with this, go back and get us out the meeting minutes and stuff from when all of that was discussed, so that we can read it. And then also, I'd like to follow through and ask council members to read that section of the UDC, so that you can ask yourself, is this stuff managed in other areas of our codes and ordinances?
Well, the only downside to that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, that our Unified Development Code is enforced by code enforcement, not police department. It doesn't give the police department
Unified Development Code, depending on the pieces of it, will be enforced by either building, by zoning, or by code enforcement.
Not the police department.
Police department's under, it's different.
Yeah.
Although pieces can be in there, the police department can enforce. It just depends on who's given the authority to enforce.
So I feel like there might be a nuisance in here
The
regarding.
majority of phone calls or complaints has more been about congestion than it has been about the type of vehicle parked in here. In cul-de-sacs per se, the lack of the availability to park on the street, similar to what you said, somebody has 2 or 3 cars parked in their driveway, but they have 2 other ones, and so they take 2 spaces. We have 50-foot lots, and the next thing you know is, there's no parking anywhere for anybody, due to the fact that 1 or 2 families are taking the majority of the spots on the street.
But you can't legislate how many cars a family has.
Well, what we could do is the setback, so that you could fit 4 cars in a driveway without blocking the sidewalk.
In new development. In new development.
Right.
So what direction?
So are we gonna go?
Can we ask Val to send us the notes from whenever the legislation was changed? And then we agree that that's the next step?
I would be interested. All right.
Okay, perfect, so we can see that discussion.
Thank you. We'll bring this back then.
So is it gonna stay on new business?
Yes.
Okay.
Department presentation with WPCP.
We did it. Oh, no, we didn't.
40 minutes.
40?
Yeah.
Okay, I only have 20. I'm just going to give you kind of a brief overview of the wastewater plant. The mission of the water pollution control plant is to provide the most effective, customer-oriented wastewater collection and treatment to the citizens of Painesville. So where does it come from? Wastewater moves to the water pollution control plant primarily by gravity flow through the sewer lines. There are 8 lift pump stations that pump the sewage from lower lying areas to the gravity interceptors that bring it to the plant. We also have 6 significant industrial users that send us flow. The 3 big ones are listed there: Avery Dennison, Lubrizol, and Cintas. And then septic trucks can also discharge as long as they're permitted with us. So the first step down the plant is preliminary treatment. So in this area right here is our bar screen. This is a manually rigged bar screen, so that means somebody has to go out and when it gets loaded, they have to clean it up with a big rake. The bar screen removes large objects such as rags and plastic from the wastewater, which protects the pump and equipment throughout the process down the plant. After that, it goes into these grit chambers right here. And then solids such as gravel, sand, or even coffee grounds settle out in these grit chambers. That also reduces wear and tear on pumps and equipment throughout the plant. After leaving the grit chambers, it goes into our primary clarifiers. We have 3 primary clarifiers, and in this process, the wastewater is slowed down and the heavier organic material settles to the bottom of the clarifiers by gravity. The material that settles in these clarifiers is called sludge or biosolids. We typically run about 3 to 4 feet of sludge in the bottom of each of these tanks. Sludge from those tanks is pumped to the anaerobic digesters. After primary clarification, the flow enters the aeration, where biological treatment of the wastewater takes place. At the beginning of aeration, the flow is mixed with activated sludge. This contains countless microorganisms such as bacteria that are able to break down the organic contaminants. So the activated sludge, the flow comes in right here, then we actually add the activated sludge right here, and that serpentines throughout and finally exits the aeration right here. From aeration, it goes to the final clarifiers where the activated sludge settles to the bottom, and it is pumped back to the beginning where I just showed you, back to the beginning of the aeration tanks. Final clarifiers also remove additional suspended solids and biochemical oxygen demand, or BOD. After secondary clarification, flow travels to tertiary filters for additional removal of suspended solids and further reduction of BOD. We have 4, this is one filter right here. We have 4 filters that we use, and these are the pumps that pump it up. This is on the second floor of the building, and these pumps pump it to the second floor. Final process before discharging the water to the Grand River is disinfection. At the wastewater plant, we produce our own sodium hypochlorite, which is basically chlorine, which we use for the disinfection of pathogens before discharging. So that's pretty much what we do with all the water. The sludge that I talked about earlier that's pumped to the anaerobic digesters is then sent to a belt filter press to be dewatered before hauling off site for disposal. Belt filter press dewaters sludge by mixing it with polymer and pressing it between 2 perforated belts at high pressure to remove as much water as possible. So right here, this is where we mix the sludge with the polymer before it gets pressed between 2 belts, and then this is the final product going into the truck. Sludge is disposed of 2 ways at the wastewater plant. One is a Lake County landfill. All of our solids pressed from the water plant and a portion of the sludge produced at the wastewater plant is hauled to the landfill for disposal. We also haul some sludge to the Quasar Energy Group, which is in Collinwood for reuse. They actually convert the biogas that they produce into electricity and sell it back to the grid. Some future projects that we're looking at. I mentioned bar screen earlier that somebody has to go out and break. That's this, which is there right now. We are in the process this year of installing a new mechanical one, so we don't have to have operators out there doing it all the time, and high flows and things like that, so they can keep their attention more on the plant. Another one that needs to be done in the future is replacement of number 1 anaerobic digester cover. We have already replaced number 2 and 3 cover. That's number 3 in the background, the white one. But as you can see, number 1, I think it's been in there since the mid-70s, so it's getting used up. So, and this is what I hope to do next year, replacing the mechanical components in number 3 primary clarifier. As you can see, you know, just the years of use have taken its toll. There's rust holes here. Our sludge collectors down on the bottom are all rusted out. If we had to turn these on, actually, I don't know that it would work. So we did the other 2 in 2010, I believe. So this is just the last one in the series that we need to fix. So this is basically what we get in, and this is what we send out into the river. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Questions? I haven't had any complaints in a while, so that's good.
That's good. We don't like complaints.
All right, administrator reports, law director, city manager, clerk of council.
The next regular council meeting will be held Monday, September 16th at 7:30. The farmers market runs Thursdays through October 10th. The car cruise is every Friday through September 27th, 5 to 9. Story time with the fire department is tomorrow, 6 to 7 at the fire station. The first Friday event is this Friday on Main Street. The theme is back to school and is 4:30 to 7:30. September 11th, flags and ceremony is at 8 a.m. in Painesville Square on September 11th. September 12th is the end of summer block party, 6 to 10 on Main Street. September 14th is the movie in the park at 6:30 in Painesville Square. The movie is Moana, and they are still looking for volunteers. The Farm and Flea is September 29th in JFS parking lot, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Thank you. Closing comments, Nick?
Nothing further.
Jim?
I'm good.
Christine?
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate Captain Marthy and Lieutenant Grivette on their promotions. I also want to offer congratulations to Sheriff Dan Dunlap. I did attend his retirement party. It was the best food I've seen in age. I mean, it was fabulous. So that was exciting. And yeah, I want to offer my congratulations to him. 46 years, I think he said, of service, so that's tremendous. I also want to welcome Posh Beauty Supply and Boutique Beauty Supply. They have opened their facility behind Drifter's Bake Shop, and attended that grand opening, and they have food there too. That's the theme here for me today. And then this Friday is the grand opening for France Auto, the new owners of France Auto. So come on out for that.
Thank you, Lori.
I have nothing to say.
Katie,
No, nothing.
thank you for coming out tonight.
Say